is the Redeemer. And
good morning to you. Thank you very much for joining us on the mother of all talk shows, Alhaji and Alhaji. We are live from the studios of Pan African Television, and we are live on TV. We are also live on several affiliate radio stations across the country. We are live on Facebook with the handle Pan African Television. We are live on YouTube. You look for Pan African TV and you can watch us live. Thanks for choosing this channel, and thanks for choosing the mother of all talk shows, Alhaji and Alhaji. We are live on Radio Gold, your power station, and of course today is the last Saturday in this month, 24th September. Thank you for joining us once again, and I apologize for my voice. It's been the way it has been. It's better now, by the way. I've been struggling with a cold, so you have to cope with it. You won't hear it majority of the time. You hear more of the panelists, so we can do without it. But we are celebrating 6 years here at Pan African Television. Feels like 10, doesn't it? Or a bit more, because of the things Pan African Television has been committed to doing and the fast progress they are making on the media landscape. So help us celebrate this 6 years and come along with us for the many number of years ahead, where we'll try to serve you content that is truly African. This morning we are talking about the World Bank. Not only the World Bank, the comments that have been made by their country director. He says there's an urgent need for Ghana to start tackling the economic challenges we are faced with. An urgent need for debt restructuring, an urgent need for the right policies to be put in place, an urgent need to increase revenue, and an urgent need to get an IMF program up and running. Well, he's not the only one who's giving us some form of caution. Fitch yesterday downgraded us. Now we at CC. We are at CCC. Now we are at CC, which means we are getting closer to junk levels. All that is to tell us you need to act now. Your economy is in junk mode. You need to do something. Well, we'll be discussing that in our very first discussion. The Ghanaian economy and what needs to be done urgently. Is the government taking the steps necessary? And then we'll move on to the discussion of Founders Day. If you were part of that celebration, Socialist Movement of Ghana led the celebration of Founders Day as they know it. 21st September was the birthday of Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. We'll go back and talk about Founders Day, and then we'll end with the NDC's rejection of the EC's policy, their plan to use only Ghana card. The law is not passed yet, so as at this time, it's still a plan. So until the CI comes into fruition, that essentially is not what will work. Currently, there's a law that allows you to use passport Ghana card and also find two guarantors, then you can be registered. The EC says, we want to cut out the passport, we want to cut out the two guarantors. What we want is for everybody to get a Ghana card before we can get onto the voters register. The NDC says, no, that won't work. There are no guarantees that everybody that needs to be on the register will have a Ghana card. The NDC is also suspicious that the EC, even though it is talking about continuous registration and limited voter registration, is actually planning to roll out a new register. So that will be our last topic for discussion, and then we'll close the show hopefully at midday. Thank you for choosing us once again. Mother of all talk shows. My name is Sena Nombo. Joining me for the discussion this morning, and let me start from the man sitting right opposite me. It's been a while since I've seen it. It's been quite a while, long time. Mr. Elvis Botah, but he's always on this television, the TV.
Yeah, Thursday programs.
I see you mostly. Yeah. I see you mostly. It's a former Deputy National Organizer of the New Patriotic Party. He joins us this morning. And sitting close to her, I think I have to refer to my notes before I mention your name. Very first time on the show, and taking our female seat this morning, is Theresa Dede Boateng, who is a member of the Socialist Movement of Ghana. And close to me very, very close to me, is Mohammed A. Sukparu, Member of Parliament for Sissala West. So I have two people who are on the show for the very first time. And then we'll be joined by Honorable Inusah Fuseini, Alhaji, former Member of Parliament for Tamale Central, to complete our panel this morning. And so we'll start the discussion right off with the issue of the Ghanaian economy and the comments of the World Bank president. And I have to start with Mr. Elvis Botah. In quite a while since I see you. Just want to hear your voice once again.
It's a pleasure to meet you again. And like you said, it's been quite a while. Two of us really haven't met, especially for this purpose. And so it's delighting to meet you again. And then my own senior brother, the Honorable Member of Parliament for Sissala West, Honorable Mohammed. Yes, two of us, yeah, we clash from time to time, and the brotherhood continues. He's MP for one of the areas in the Upper West region that requires a lot of attention. And for me, one of the areas, I think history haven't been too fair to, considering the fact that this is a place that produced a one-time president who was on course for a proper economic revolution of the country, but whose regime was truncated by the arms of, autocracy in the era of military dictatorship. And we consider some of those instances the dark history of Ghana. So I say good morning to my brother and my new wife. Yes, nobody should try me on my new wife, Yes, it's good to have many wives. I am a proponent of polygamy, and so I'm happy to have another young breed, especially of the female class, who will at least neutralize the extreme patriarchal nature and masculinity that is always dominating in this particular program. So I think that is a fantastic thing that Pan-Africa begins to feature as in these instances. Let me say that today also marks the birthday of Honorable Alban S.K. Bagwin, the Speaker of the 8th Parliament of the Republic of Ghana. He is also the former MP of my own constituency, where I have contested. In fact, I contested he himself in the 2016 election, where I almost caused a catastrophe. And then again, I ran for the same constituency in 2020. And so I think that with the greatest of respect, he is one of the pillars of our democracy, undoubtedly. And I'm proud that one of our very own, from the part of the country I come from, have demonstrated, shall I say, even enough competency on that seat as Speaker than he ever even did as Member of Parliament. And I am so profoundly proud of his style of leadership, putting government and all other arms of it on his toes and in his check. I think that there are moments we need that objectivity, because all of these wouldn't really make sense, Sena. All of these wouldn't really make sense if we do not envisage, to build a stronger economic architecture upon which the social and political aspirations of the country will thrive. Therein lies the future of our generations. Therein lies our very hope. Therein lies the furtherance of our very existence as a state. And so it makes it one that compels us to discuss issues of the economic beyond the natural feelings and emotions of our individual political leanings. And so clearly it's been without debate that the World Bank's position on our economy, for me, reflects a vindication on an accusation I laid on them just a few days ago on Thursday. I have always maintained that we have to be extremely careful with these Bretton Woods institutions. When they begin to praise you too much or introduce the language of diplomacy in matters relating your economy, just remember your history. and the history of the Bretton Woods Institutes. Why they were created, we have read and we know. And so I was particularly worried that the IMF rushed to say that, there's nothing wrong with the Ghanaian economy, but for Russia-Ukraine war, and then the impact of COVID, as if those are not reasons. There are always reasons for, you know, any economy running on a reverse gear. You understand what I mean? And so they should stop being diplomatic with us. The World Bank quickly followed up to say that, oh no, government should be vindicated on its, you know, mantra of prudent, you know, management of public finances, especially the COVID-19 fund that came into the center of controversy, even in Parliament. And I do not need to contradict government, even as I speak for government. I do not need to contradict government, but to say that for me, the very lowest was when the vice president gives us different figures in respect of our economic outlook. The finance minister held on to different figures. The information minister, you know, propounded different figures. And at some point, even the president himself, you know, mentioned different figures. And so for me, and especially so when Bank of Ghana could not even also tell us anything meaningful, but to also give us different figures that eventually couldn't stand the test of reality. So it tells us that there are important domestic economic considerations that we by ourselves must, without the reliance on any external body, be able to do a practical economic analysis as against our social sector. It is for no reason we marry the two to arrive at socio-economic issues, because there is an interplay between the two so long as human well-being is involved. But basically, to say that, to run into a bit of figures, I think that today the economy of the country is bad. Businesses are collapsing. We've seen the dollarization of the economy. We've also seen the high rates of depreciation of the cedi, and the extent to which it has come under a lot of pressure, affecting industry, productivity, and businesses. I mean, especially the import-export sector suffers a lot. And once we are a country that have refused to, beyond the postulations of theory, put into practice the need for a production-based economy as a point of departure to migrate from extreme taxation, we have arrived at a point where the impact of, you know, too much importation results into a negative net export. And what that does is that even without any war in any part of the world, what a negative net export will do is to push businesses to have to buy more dollar. And in order to buy more dollar, you need to pump in a lot of, you know, local currency, and that causes an attrition of that particular currency marginally. And so already it tells you that we have these issues. Notwithstanding all of that, it is important that we also pat government on the back. For me, the NPP government in 2017, 2018, and even 2019, at least, performed a bit better. You know why? Because this period I have mentioned is a period that spelled out about a 7%, you know, growth rate for our economy. And then you realize that going forward, the setting in of COVID-19 now came to exacerbate underlying economic issues, most of whom I think are structural in nature, okay, coupled with the impact of the corruptible nature of government officials, the corruptible nature even within our bureaucracies exacerbated the matter. And so COVID came and we did not have any particular domestic strength to withstand the shocks COVID came with. And I still insist that there was a mismanagement of the COVID fund. Contrary to what the World Bank tries to convince us that no, it was spent well. What is the definition of it being spent well? That it has reflected positively in our pockets, it has reflected positively by other indicators of the economy. I think on that score it is a no. Because between 2019 then and today, we are talking about poverty rising from 25%, poverty rates have risen from 25% to about 25.5%, meaning they've been an upward, attack of poverty on us by some 0.5%. And all these figures are relative to GDP. All of these are very relative to the gross domestic product of this country. You also realize that GDP have actually declined from, some 3.3% to as low as 2.7%. And it is therefore not by magical means that we have to begin to understand why inflation, which is also a major economic indicator, have skyrocketed. Inflation, as we talk today, we are being compelled to believe is about 37%, but I think that inflation have run much, even almost into over 52%. So these are the realities. Then you go back and you even want to take a simple look at interest rates. You see, these are the major pillars against which we are able to judge whether an economy will even grow or not. So you go back to interest rates, which spells for us the cost of capital. If I go to buy capital for the purposes of running business, I do so at the risk of the bank. And so the banks must charge a reasonable risk to be able to mitigate my inability to pay. So the higher the risk, the higher the interest rates. And that is why we have bank interest also skyrocketing to over 47, percent. So under these circumstances, Sena, it becomes practically impossible to talk about an outlook economically that is in favor of industry and in favor of the support of, social living. It becomes very difficult. It is why we are in so much hardship, because the aggregate of all of these negative variables, the aggregates are pushed to the consumer, who will have to bear that particular cost. In a capitalist system, it takes just the consumer to suffer, because businessmen must make profit at all costs. So you have the money, you buy; you don't have the money, you go. Giving us two things: a demand-driven, price shortages, and then price hikes, I must say, and then supply shortages arising from the major issues, shall I say, the supply chain value is also truncated. And that is where I think that reasonably Russia's war on Ukraine and COVID-19 may better be situated, given that the truncated global supplies of raw materials, and even the manufacturing sector suffered a deficit of both labor and capital. And so these are important things we need to be able to consider. And it ties significantly into the analysis placed by what's the rating agency there? Yes, Fitch. I have my reservations about them, but on a lighter note, I'm just wondering why they have always done this for all governments, though, and I wonder why just in the past few months, in just about the past 18 months, this is about the fourth report. I am just at a personal level wondering why the speed. Is it just to update us on progress, or there is another motive? Either ways, what is very important is for us to be able to feed on the lessons there, so long as they are closer to what appears to be credible. It is incumbent on government, it is incumbent on the economic management team to want to look at it, because I do recall in 2017 we were rated B, and in 2018 there was a bit of upgrade to a B+, and sharply we started declining to about CC, now triple C, right? And today we are CC, approaching what may be described as the junk. What that means is that even debt to GDP ratio has skyrocketed, and true to that, we have a debt to GDP ratio of about 78.6% currently as we speak. I think it's bad. And that was even, this figure I've mentioned was as of June. July, August, September, a whole quarter pass. I will not be surprised that debt to GDP ratio will now be, hitting about 80. Practically taking us back to a highly indebted, poor country. Because the higher your debt to GDP ratio, the higher your inability to be able to service debts. And it is one of the reasons we have to run to IMF, not maybe for policy credibility, but to be able to just simply to be able to balance our books. And we are not even able to balance the books, but at least we are able to come back to a trajectory. And that is where I think that the self-inflicted pain comes in, because what we lose to corruption, what we lose through tax leakages, what we lose through procurement, leakages and bridges, alone can make up for what we are expecting of the IMF to be able to come back on the track of what we may want to call progress. I don't see it as progress. And that is where the hypocrisy of this, you see, let's be careful with these Bretton Woods institutions that were made after the Second World War with the interest of, the core states, speaking international wise. But countries of the periphery don't stand to benefit, because the more they come and try to give you aids, come to give you loans, come to give you grants to allow for socioeconomic stimulation, the more you begin to run in a vicious cycle of indebtedness. So they are not the solution to our problems. Let us come back at the domestic level. Let us have prudent pricing measures. Let us strive to add value to our raw materials, and let us try to stop the importation of, you see, there's too much useless importations in this country. Look, why should Ghana be importing rice when we have the capacity to feed the whole of Africa with rice? Ghana have that capacity to produce rice to feed the continent at the regional scale. Why must we import rice from China and Indonesia and Thailand? Why? Why must we import spices from India? Why? I don't get it. Why must we even import this useless meat we eat every day? Chicken, kofin korke. Why? And what happened to Dako farms? We collapsed it. What happens to the other state farms we had that produce not just agronomic products, but also, meat for us, our local consumption? We have collapsed all of them. We sold out the entities Nkrumah established for these purposes. Why? Singapore have come to copy some of our policies, and they have gone and they have made it today. They broke off from the third world, category of countries, and we are still the champions of the third world countries. Why? Why must we import toothpicks? Why? Sena, when we have abundance of mahogany and neem trees, wasting about, why do we have to import toothpicks? Just the simple issue of government respecting the will of its people and their sovereignty, and to bring to an end some of these things. At least Nigeria is in the lead. Must we always succumb to the perilous interest of countries of the West? And now, even in the South-South cooperation, you realize that the dominance of China in African affairs is also largely detrimental. There is no free lunch anywhere. The fact that they build a railway for you, the fact that they build a few kilometers of road for you, know that they are coming for more. It is why we cannot track down people like Aisha One when they come and cause us harm, and behind the scenes they facilitate a loan for you as it is emerging. How do we? So we expect some of these things. And so the World Bank and the IMF should be credible enough to want to tell us the truth. Don't come and praise us today and create the impression as if there's nothing wrong. Then the next day you come out with another newsletter and want to create the impression as if there's something wrong, just to keep us in a confusion that will only assemble politicians like us to a platform. We convert the whole matter into NDC, MPP, forget there is something called Ghana, debate among ourselves, peddle useless arguments, and get up and walk out. I am not in for those kind of debates. The reality is that until we come back for domestic approach to our issues, we will be worse in the next 5 years than we are today. So I will end it here, and for others to speak, Sena. But honestly, I'm not a happy man. And I think that these economic issues, we've done too much politics, too much talking with them. There can always be an avenue for action. And all governments are guilty in not doing what we should have done to be on the path of progress. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for starting a discussion for us on that particular topic. It's the matter of comments made by the World Bank country director. He says we need to take urgent steps. His proposal is the IMF program. There are those who have issues with the IMF, whether that would even help us in any way. Are we trying to resolve the issue, or we're just trying to plaster it and hand us back to, of course, foreign investors? This is Fitch. The statement that was issued by Fitch, that was yesterday, and one of the things they highlight is high debt servicing financing constraint, and they say interest costs reach 47.5% revenue in 2021 and 54% in the first half of 2022. Interest payments on domestic debt comprise around 75% of total interest costs. This reflects high yields on domestic debt, which have climbed following a 34% spike in inflation. So the decisions that are being made at the central bank have also not been helpful to attempt to address inflation. As at August 2022, and monetary tightening, with the Bank of Ghana hiking its policy rate to 22% from 14.5% in February. And if you listen to the World Bank president carefully, he said the difficulty is that even the domestic debt we have, which means the loans we've taken locally, majority of them are held by banks. So you cannot ask banks to take a haircut or ask them to reschedule their payments. If they do, they will suffer. So there's a difficulty restructuring with the debt that we are taking domestically. Well, I will listen to Honorable Sukparu, and then I would read the messages you're sending to us via Facebook. Honorable.
Thank you very much, Sena. And let me use your great platform to wish the Right Honorable Speaker of the Ghana's Parliament, Honorable Alban Sumana Kingsford Bagbin, happy birthday to him. Today is his sister's 5th birthday, and I pray that Almighty Allah bless him as he lives to, impact lives and, strengthen our democracy. He's an institution when it comes to Ghana democracy, especially in parliamentary business. I think we have him as a speaker at the right time. You can imagine a hung parliament today with the Right Honorable Speaker being the Speaker of Parliament, the controversies that we would have been going through. And so I think God just appointed him at the right time to lead our Parliament. And so we pray that Almighty Allah continue to keep him safe and bless him. Sena, Ghana's economy, discussing and sitting listening to my good brother, how I intend to talk. I thought that he was going to come from a different angle, but I think he admitted that his government didn't handle things rightly, and for me, that is the way to go. When you err, you accept that, yes, I've performed poorly. The people of this country will forgive you. But I find it difficult sometimes when you listen to other communicators trying to justify the abysmal performance of this current government. And that is the reason why we are here, we are today. Considering the hardship that has been, imposed on our people, and all of these things, you and I know it is just purely based on mismanagement of this economy. I wouldn't want to even go far. Just recently, we saw the Auditor's General report on the 2021 Auditor's General report that was presented to Parliament, and even only the assemblies and that of statutory boards alone, we lost about almost 15 billion Ghana cedis. And so it tells you that a lot is happening as far as corruption is concerned under this particular government. And so government is just not handling things at the way we expect government should handle. Most especially in 2017 when this government introduced this anti-corruption agency, this special prosecutor. At least we knew at that time that it wouldn't be able to solve the problem of corruption, but at least certainly would reduce it. But even having special prosecutor, and we see things that are rather getting worse than before, it makes me feel some way, and as if we do not even have somebody spearheading this economy. It's like Ghana, or for that matter, the economy is on its own. There's nobody in charge of the economy. My brother spoke about the fact that we barely import almost everything. And his government came in 2017 and made a lot of promises that they were going to engage in one district, one factory, and how those factories were going to reduce unemployment and reduce our importation, which certainly would make our city very strong. Today, if you ask them, they will give you figures, data, the number of factories that they have commissioned for the past 6 years. They tell you the number of employment those factories created, yet you cannot feel that on the ground. You cannot see that reflecting on our economy. And so it all tells you, all these things come to inform you and I that the government is either not telling the Ghanaian the truth, or they are massaging the figures, that what they are telling us, it is not true. Either, perhaps, we cannot say that they've not done something as far as one district, one factory is concerned, but the figures, the number of factories they are purporting that they've created, the number of employment those factories created, and if all these things that they are saying, indeed, it is something that it is true, at least we should have seen that reflecting on the economy. Look at the exchange rate today. Ghana cedi is trading around little over 10 cedis to dollar, which shouldn't be the case. It's just 2017, before NPP came into power, it was around 4.2, and today we're talking about 10 cedis plus. It shouldn't be so. If those factories that they claim that they created were something that indeed exists, certainly the exchange rate shouldn't be so. You have several other activities that but the most dangerous thing about this government is this: when you see the truth and you want to tell them that what you are doing will lead us to this, they will come after you. They will paint you, especially you, the media, as somebody either in bed with the NDC or you do not like the president. And at all times, that is why my brother, was trying to even blame the fish rating. He says, you heard you saying that he doesn't understand why for the past 18 years, for the past 18 months, they've been coming out with different rating about 4 times and all. It used to be same before 20. I understand you. It used to be same. Before ADC left power, it was they rated Ghana's economy as, I think, around B, negative B or something like that. I mean, you guys were just as, calling the then president names, he's incompetent and all of that. Today, the reality has dawned on you. I've always maintained that karma is very rare. And when His Excellency, the president, then His Excellency John Dramani Mahama used to tell his younger brother, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, that he had no right at that time to criticize him because he hadn't occupied the seat. And so he didn't understand what it takes to lead this country. People were calling him names and that he was somebody who was intolerant and all that. And the reality has dawned on all of us. We've seen the competence. If Bawumia or His Excellency the President is competent today, I'm sure Ghanaians would have seen that. If they are the most incompetent, leaders in the history of Ghana's democracy, I'm sure Ghanaians today, we've seen that. My brother, sitting here reading this report, And just oppose that with the borrowing that this government engaged ever since they took over this country. As we speak today, Ghana debt stood almost at 400 billion, around 391 billion Ghana cedis. That is about 50 billion US dollar. Yet, the most interesting, you cannot pinpoint at any fiscal structure that this government has done. And so, at least, you can say, having borrowed this much money, this is something that they've been able to achieve for us. I am coming from a rural constituency, and like he rightly said, in the Upper West region, Sissala West, go there and see for yourself our roads, the infrastructure, education, even the school blocks. All of them are in deplorable state. Yet, we borrow this huge sum of money, and we cannot point a finger at something that we've been able to achieve. When you want to talk, they will tell you free senior high school. Of course, we appreciated the free senior when it was introduced. And that is why NGC, and for that matter, the former president, when he was campaigning in 2020, told them that, yes, it is a good decision to have a free senior high school in this country at this time. But he thinks that that policy must be reviewed. And he was meant to be that, he said, when given the opportunity to lead this country again, he was coming to cancel the free senior high school. Today, I'm happy the president himself is saying that we have to review this free senior high school. Several things happened, and it is not only the free senior high school that really caused us this kind much. Recently, I think just yesterday, the president returned from UN General Assembly. If you saw the number of people that he traveled with to the UN General Assembly, all of these things, we are talking about the expenditure, the way they spend our money. That is one of the major problems that we are confronted with. It has nothing to do with COVID. It has nothing to do with Russia-Ukraine war. That cannot be said, because even if, granted, it is about Russia-Ukraine war, somewhere 2017, even 2016, 2017, those of us that are coming from border constituency, and I'm sure my honorable uncle would attest to the fact that most of the activities, my brother is aware that our people used to rather export oil, should I say export, smuggle oil from Ghana to sell to the neighboring country, Burkina Faso, Cote d'Ivoire. And today it is the opposite. People rather go to Burkina and smuggle fuel to Ghana to sell to people because it is cheaper in Burkina Faso. And so the question I ask myself is, if it is about Russia-Ukraine war, is it that Burkina Faso that has no even port? All their, oil, then all the things they import through sea is either through Ghana or Togo. Yet, it is cheaper in Burkina. Fuel is cheaper in Burkina today as compared to Ghana. And that is the opposite. It used not to be so. You understand? And so, most of the things we are experiencing is just because this government is very reckless when it comes to expenditure. It's very reckless when it comes to managing this economy. You've seen the amount of money expended at the office of the president. I just cited an example. Even though we know that we are confronted with this challenge, the president is aware. Yet when he's traveling, he's not looking at trying to cut down the number of people he should travel with. He goes with as usual, as though all is well, knowing very well that we are in a serious situation, that he, as a head of this country, must sit down and look at policies and how he manages this economy. Where that he did not go well, what were they not doing right? He needs to sit down and look at all of these things and get them correct. Every year, Auditor's General report, or Auditor General will present a report, and he's been seeing the amount of money that we've been losing through that. What steps has this government taken to address, this challenges. Nothing practical has been done about it. And this, every single year, it keeps increasing. This should have been a wake-up call on the government to sit down. And he himself should take the report. Where are we losing this money? And what are the recommendations being recommended by the Auditor's General Office? What is the way forward? What are we not doing right? Let's get all these things done rightly and see the subsequent year whether we'll be able to reduce it. In that way, we'll be able to achieve and save something for our country. But if you have a president who basically, he doesn't care, what he cares is he has achieved his dream to become a president. He has achieved his childhood dream that he's been, wanting to lead this country, and he has achieved. And so once he's been able to implement free senior high school, that alone is okay. He's just there living like a king. And it shouldn't be so. And so I am not surprised that we are being graded from CCC, triple C. Today we are, CC. No. It tells me the CC means that our economy is in the dustbin, not like a junk economy. The triple C was, that was rated earlier, meant that the economy was by the dustbin. And today, I think they finally dumped the economy in the dustbin. Nobody wants to come closer to something that is in the dustbin. And so no investor is willing to invest in our country, our economy. Look, my brother spoke about the fact that somewhere 2017, the growth of this economy was about 7%. And you know what this government has been doing right from 2017? I've maintained that when you are sick, right, if you have a headache and you decide to take a painkiller, certainly the headache will reduce. It doesn't mean that you've solved the problem entirely. When the painkiller gets out of your system, the headache will come back. And that is what is happening to this country. They've been dependent on this bond. And let me take you through some of the things that they engage. And these are kind of like artificial strength being pumped into the economy. And that was how come we got that growth. Immediately, 2020, was it 2020 when they were just preparing to go to the market again to borrow about 3 billion, to float bonds about 3 billion. And then was it Bloomberg or this same fish came out with the rating, describe our economy, and so no investor was ready to invest in our economy. And that's how come they had no option than to go to the IMF. That is how come today we are faced with these challenges. In 2017 when they came, they floated about 2.5 somewhere April, yes, 2.5 billion. So when they got that gave them something like an artificial strength. And that's how come you saw the growth 7.5. 2018, they again went in for 2 billion. 2019, 3 billion. And then 2020, 2 billion. So 2021 was also 2 billion. They've been depending so far about 18 billion that they've been, floating. They went to the bond market to about 18 billion. So the 2022, just as they were preparing again to go in for another, it was around 2.5. Yes, it was around 2.5 billion, and then the rating was released by Fish, and so nobody was interested in our economy, and that's how come they had no option than to quickly take a U-turn to go to IMF. You realize that even after the budget, when the e-levy was introduced, the finance minister, a week to the announcement of this IMF, was still telling Ghanaians that there is no way that this country, under the watch of His Excellency, the current president, that they would go to IMF. Just a week later, we were told that they have decided to go to IMF for bailout. And so I am telling you that all these growth that he spoke about, it was as a result of this, bond that they kept, moving to the bond market. That is how come we saw some few, positive growth somewhere 2017, 2018. And they didn't really sit down to look at the fundamental problems of this economy. Once that was not able to tackle, that is how come today we are here we are today. Because that is why I said, if you are sick and you decide not to let your medical or team investigate you to know what the root cause of your sickness, so that they can treat it in totality, and you engage in painkiller and other, first aid, you would think that, oh, the problem is fully addressed. But I'm telling you that in a week or 2 days time, that problem, when it's coming back, it will hit you harder. And that is currently what is happening to Ghana. Okay. So our problems were not tackled. They were rather looking at ways and means, where can we quickly, get money to do this. Let's get money. Forgetting that all these things that you are doing, we're going to face a serious challenge. And that they are just lucky that Russia and Ukraine, they have their own problems somewhere. So that is they have no any other thing to blame their poor performance on, apart from Russia, Ukraine, war, and COVID-19. Look at, even I just cited Burkina Faso. The countries that surrounded Ghana, were they not also affected by COVID-19? Is Russia, Ukraine war not affecting Burkina Faso or Togo or Ivory Coast? Why are they performing better than us?
Okay. Honorable, thank you. Thank you very much. Let me just do, I'll come to Dede shortly. Just a few things. First, let me acknowledge the fact that we are live on Shine FM in Akachi, 97.9. We're also live on Hills FM in Adaklo, 91.7. We are live on University Radio Ketakrachi, is on 89.7. Sela Radio Dabala is on the 97.1 FM dial. Diamond FM Tamale, you can get it on 93.7 if you're within Tamale and its environs. You can get Bewa Radio Yendi 106.5 and be able to listen to us as we speak. Radio Kitaon Saboba 95.7, Benya FM Omina 105.7, Cape FM Cape Coast is on 90.3, Global FM is on 105.1 in Ho, Volta 1 TV, and also Zeps FM 95.9 megahertz in Zebila, True FM 92.5 in Adeso, and Lamaria FM 89.1 in Tripoli is one of our latest additions. Thank you all very much for providing us your platform. Don't forget, this show is live on Pan-African Television and live on Radio Gold. Let me say good morning and a big thank you to Ahunto 92.3 FM. It's one of the other radio stations we are live on in the Greater Accra region. Let me read a few messages you're sending to us via Facebook on the issue we've been discussing for some time now. Positive Change in Medina says, if you ever wondered why Ghana's public debt has since 2017 been growing at an unexplained geometric sequence, the reason is here. Those in charge of the borrowing stand to personally profit from the borrowing through the reward in fees to their companies who serve as their transaction advisors. I think that's what you meant to write. Ayo Farouk is joining us. Good morning. Seriously, it would be suicidal if Ghana card should be a barrier to deny innocent citizens from not registering. The AC must work for Ghana and not the NPP party. Good morning to you. This is Ben Kofi Anderson. I just want to thank you very much for featuring my man of the moment, Elvis Botah. Apart from Uncle Kwesi, you are indeed a listening anchor or host. Thanks and enjoy the weekend. That's from my producers. I can't take credit for what they've done. This one, Uncle Elvis Botah wants us to believe that the NPP government's economic outlook was good from 2017 to 2019. It was the impact of the resilient economy that was handed over to them by the SYNDC regime. They have mismanaged everything, including COVID-19 funds and donations, without any iota of accountability. He agrees with you on the mismanagement of the COVID funds. These capitalist ambassadors of poverty must be removed from office. Election 2024 is second independence for Ghana. You say, EK Yapson says, Pan-African TV. Okay, he says, okay. Oh, sorry. Lydia Sebeoli says, well spoken, Elvis, keep it up. Abdul Kadir Katariga is joining us. Says he's monitoring live from Tamale, Sena, on the issues of our current economy under the watch of Reverend Dr. Baumia. The least we say of it, the better. By now, His Excellency Nanadwe and his so-called men should have asked for forgiveness on the good people of this country. May God Almighty Allah save Mother Ghana from the MPP administration. David Oforiaye says Elvis has acquitted himself very well on this issue. He has spoken the minds of many Ghanaians. There's Frederick Amegbe who says, Botah, I give you maximum respect this morning. You have been a true Ghanaian. Sapi Agbo says the last panelist started on a factual trajectory but diluted his submission by buying into the oft false claims that the current economic malaise was a result of the Ukraine-Russian war. If the supply side of the world economy has been disrupted, it is a result of the rise in energy prices, which is the immediate response of the sanction regime on Russia championed by US. In any case, rather than make sweeping statements about the disruption in the world market and how that affects Ghana, or rather they give us statistics to support their arguments. Has the war affected the tonnage of cocoa beans we export? Has the war reduced the number of barrels of crude oil exported from Ghana? Has the war disrupted the production and export of gold? Do we import grain from Ukraine? Can the government tell us the volume of trade between Ghana and Ukraine or Russia? This oft rehashed argument is the lazy man's way of excusing their failure. That's from Sape Agbo. This is Abdul Rahman, who says a good morning. This hullabaloo about the IMF, I know where we are heading to. All Nanado is trying to do is to send us to HIPIC. Nothing more, nothing less. They think that is the only way to go so that they can get the chance to loot our money. They are trying to use the IMF and other great institutions to throw more light on the state of the economy for our debtors to buy into that idea. Atta Freeman says, Sena, with the government, we have no... Okay, that is your comment, I think, is not complete. There's Prince Chemina who says, kudos to the People's MP, Honorable Mohammed Adam Sukparu. Listening to you is always a pleasure, and your constituents are so proud of you. You always put them on the map, and you shall reign forever. There's Gabriel. Okay, there's David Oforiaye again. Says that Bretton Woods institutions are nothing but capitalist institutions designed to create dependency to enable them to stay on top. They employ all subtle means to realize that, including outright lies. There's Phyllis Juma who says, a great submission from Elvis. That's the way to go if we really want to solve our problem collectively. Alasa Yankubu, very superb speech. Truth is truth. You really love your country. There's Suleiman Abdul Rahim, who says downgrade of the Ghanaian economy from triple C to CC clearly defined who Dr. Banoemuleng is, and we should never make such a mistake. Ibrahim Jonathan, the rating agencies are just doing their work. I'm surprised that the president said the rating agencies are quick to downgrade African countries, which is causing the poor economic management in Africa. The mismanagement of Ghana's economy is gross incompetence. There are several other messages, but Dede. Yeah. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah. So let's hear you on the first topic for discussion.
Okay. Well, I'd like to say greetings to all Ghanaians, to all the masses out there. Tackling this issue, I think I would like to go straight to an in-depth analysis of what is really happening on ground. Not just the theories, not just what is being speculated, but actually looking at the very realities of the Ghanaian people. What is the reflection of the economy like? You see, since time memorial, Ghana has been a country which is dependent on foreign aid. And this is what Kwame Nkrumah fought against. For us to use our resources for our own benefits, and not for the benefit of Western powers. The question is, what do we lack in this country? The country has all the resources, name it, the gold, the bauxite, the diamond, the cocoa, the oil, everything. But it's so absurd that we still find ourselves in this lingering poverty all around the country. What is the root cause of what is taking place? It is because the resources that are supposed to be used by the citizens, they don't have access, or they don't make maximum use of it. Because if we have the cocoa, why should we be importing all the products of cocoa from other countries? That is something that is detrimental to the growth of the Ghanaian economy. Lately, we see the rise in fuel prices. Upon the discovery of petroleum in the country, we thought that was going to stabilize issues. But it's still very upset to see the situation that the ordinary citizens are in. And I think going to the IMF, the Bretton Woods institution, is not what we should be looking at. Just like my fellow colleague said, if you have a headache, you don't expect to take stomach prescriptions to cure that. Because at the end of the day, you are not tackling the core issues. You are not addressing the very important thing that needs to be touched on. And once again, you having an issue within your country, I think first of all, you yourself have to do an in-depth analysis to understand what is really happening within your sphere. If you are not able to understand the problem, then I think you are not going to have a lasting solution to the problem. Because the moment you have issues and you think of jumping to the IMF, that is not what is supposed to be done. You need to sit back, analyze, and know what is really the problem. What must be done to the core. And not just to be winding around the core issue. Because at the end of the day, you come back and you realize on ground, things are not stable as it's supposed to be. For people to have food, even just once in a day, is a challenge. Why? Because the economy is very bad. The prices of things have increased so much that people are not even able to feed themselves with square meals in a day. That is something that we should be looking at. It shouldn't be an acrobatics of partisan politics or whatever politics that we may call it. We should rather look at the core situation. What is the plea of the ordinary Ghanaian? What is the situation on ground? Are they able to access healthcare? Are they able to have good transportation means? What is the state of the economy? I don't think we should try to look from it from afar, because it's right before our eyes. And we see every day, on walking on the street, you see the hawkers and the stress they have to go through to make ends meet. But at the end of the day, these people are not able to meet their basic needs. To the extent that people take their lives because they don't want to go through the pain of struggling for what to eat the next day. To the extent that people have to kill their children because they don't have that means to cater for them. This is the situation that we are in as Ghanaians. And this is something that has to be tackled. Rather than trying to make it, theorize it, or make it a trivial issue. These are the main issues on ground that needs to be tackled. What can we do to exploit our resources for our own use? Rather than depending on foreign aid all the time, which if we sit back and draw the analysis and look at the chart, we realize it doesn't add any value to the economy. It doesn't add any value to the economy. Because I believe, or I think this is not the first time Ghana is dependent on the Bretton Woods for aid. You go to them for aid, you come back, and the next day things are even worse than they were. You should sit back and reflect and know that no, I cannot be doing the same thing over and over and expect a different result. We should tackle the issue to the core, where all these resources will not be sent outside of the country, where we would refine all these resources for our own use, rather than for the benefit of other people outside of the country. And the question is, does the resource belong to an individual or a certain class of people? It is a typical no, because the resources of the country belongs to each and every member or citizen of the country, but it is given in trust of the president for the whole people. And this shouldn't be the case where some people only enjoy it to the maximum, while others are not even able to reach a quarter of it. We should think of how we will be able to make a summation of use so that each and every one will be able to meet their basic needs of life. Their basic needs of life. I think that is my focus, and that is where I would like to stand. The basic needs of life. If we look at the situations on the street, if we look at the situations in the villages, what does it look like? Does it look like a country that has all the resources? If we look around, all the factories that was laid down by Kwame Nkrumah has been brought down. And now we have to import tomatoes, we have to import chocolates, virtually everything. This is something that is totally abhorrent. We must stand against such. These are all tools of capitalism to maneuver its way into the country and take away the resources that belongs to all individuals of the country. We should look critically at that. It is not about making it partisan politics. It is about being truthful to what is really on ground, and not just taking sides because I belong to this party or I belong to that. Let's look at it from the whole mesh. What is really happening? Then we can think of what can be done. I believe we going to the World Bank is of no use. I believe we should sit down as a country and make use of our resources to our own benefits. We are in this country, and now even a sachet of water is costing 50 pesos. 50 pesos. A bottle, 3 cedis. This is very upset, because most people are not even able to make 5 Ghana cedis in a day to feed themselves, talk of their family or their children. How much more a place to put their heads? All over the streets at night, at dawn, you see people lying by the streets in the midst of mosquitoes, in the midst of this cold weather. Their health is at a risk. We should think of the ordinary Ghanaian and how we will be able to improve their standard of living. We should think of the ordinary Ghanaian in sending all our resources out of the country. We don't expect them to live outside of their resources, because man's life is tied to the land. Man's life is tied to his or her resources. And if you take away these resources from them, it's just like taking a fish out of water. You expect the person to die. And that is what we are seeing. The economy is dying in different areas. People are literally dying out of hunger within the country. We see people begging on the streets, not because they will love to or not because they wish to, but because the conditions, early people begging for money to make ends meet. It's not because they wish to have something happening to them, but the realities, the conditions on ground are not favorable for the ordinary Ghanaian. This is where we should gear our focus towards, and not jumping to the World Bank for aid. We should think of how we can collaborate, collectively use our resources for our own benefits. Because without doing that, we will continually rely on foreign aid. And these foreign aids have their conditionalities. And these conditionalities, we must first of all ask ourselves to whose benefit and to whose disadvantage. Because we know that a borrower is always a slave to the lender. If you rely all the time on people, you lose your own rights. You lose your own self. Because at that point, the person determines what you have to do with what and what time that you have to do it. So I think this issue of World Bank should not be something that we should be looking at as a greater picture now. We should be looking at the issue of capitalism, neocolonialism, and how it is affecting the country. Because this is not something new. These are things that has been recurring all the time. Except we want to say we don't take heed of whatever has been happening. We know the history, and therefore we should be able to use that to calculate what is happening now and what is going to happen in the future. We know of this Sino-Hydro deal that was supposed to take place with our bauxite. And the question you ask yourself is, what is that benefit to the ordinary citizen? What is that benefit to that market woman by Makola? What is that benefit to that woman sitting at Medina, selling to make ends meet? I think we should be very critical on how we solve our issues. Because all this game is about robbing Peter to pay Paul. The aid that we are going for is something that we should not even be thinking of. Because at the end of the day, all these revenues are obtained from natural resources that we have in our countries. So going back to these people for aid is the wrong step or the wrong direction that we should be looking at. As I said, the price of kenke, the price of banku, buying a ball of banku, 2 cedis, I think my fist is even larger than that. And it's not something that we should be happy about. It is not something that we should take our eyes off. Because people are really suffering in the country. And I mean, people are really suffering in the country. And are calling, there is this incessant aid that people are calling for. And that aid is within ourselves. That solution is within the very problem that we are confronted with. Rather than looking elsewhere for solution, I think we should sit down as a country and look in between our means to solve these issues. There is high rate of importation, as my colleague said. Meanwhile, we produce all these natural resources. Why can't we refine them? Why can't we make the finished goods out of them and use them for our benefits? Because we have the arable lands we can farm on to feed each and every one. But we ask ourselves, why are people still in hunger? Why are children not able to even get pocket monies for school? We talk of the free SHS, but that is not the solution to our problems. We must look at the economic situations. After the senior high schools, what is the repercussion? What is the end result? That is what we should look at. I feel like people like Nkrumah, they were generational thinkers. They thought ahead, and not just for themselves. They put themselves aside and looked at the ordinary people. His association with the market people even tells us that these are people who had the citizens at heart. That is what we have to do. We need to go down to the streets to understand what is really happening on the ground. It's not just about sitting in our comfort zones and think the way we are able to provide for our family and ourselves, that is the same way others are able to provide for themselves and families. It is never the same. It is never the same. People are dying gradually because they are not able to meet the basic necessities of life. These are things that should touch the heart of people in power to think of how to solve these pertinent issues. It shouldn't be a moment for displaying ideologies which do not reflect on the ground. And my emphasis is the ground is telling the realities. What are we seeing? What does the economy look like? The economy is dwindling day in and day out. And what are we doing to sustain the economy? The solution is not with IMF. The solution is not with World Bank. It is our problem, and we must think of our solution. We must not think of how they can come in to help, because at the end of the day, that help is just an illusion. They will come and try to give the help, but as I said, the conditionalities will let the economy still dwindle. So we must tackle these issues by ourselves. We must make sure that children are able to have good health. Mothers are able to have good health. This is what the ordinary Ghanaian is fighting for. This is what they are looking at. The reason for their going to vote is not just a luxury, but because they think, or because they want help, because they need their economic situations to change. Not rather the other way around, where they will keep begging and begging for bread every day or for food. We need to set this straight, that our aid is not with World Bank. Our aid is with ourselves as a country. We know the situation better. Someone cannot get out of his house to another person's house to know the exact issues of that household. You within your household must know, first of all, what is the core issue. And with that, you will be able to lay down strategies to be able to tackle all those things. Because the World Bank coming in also have his stratagems. What do they require? Why would someone want to help you? No one will just want to cast the bread to the swines. No. They should have an end result that will benefit them. That is why they would come in to help. Because they know all the resources are within this continent. All the resources are within this country. And coming to help is just a means to get what they want. We see how people are suffering within the mining companies just to exploit the natural resources for the use of the country. But at the end of the day, it is all hauled out of the country for the use of other people. Why should this be? Why must it be this way? Where did we go wrong as a country? We need to think about those things. We need to ask the whys. What is the purpose of the IMF in the country? we should be able to read in between the lines and know that their coming in has never solved the issues that it's supposed to tackle.
Okay.
Their coming into the country is not what is going to feed the people on the street. Their coming into the country is not what is going to better the health conditions of the country. We have to put our strengths together. We have to put our forces together to be able to use these resources for our own benefit. We should be able to use these resources for our own benefit. It shouldn't be for the benefits of people outside of the country who do not have the interests of the country at heart.
Okay. Dede, thank you. Thank you very much. And
Thank you.
I think she's saying the basic question we should be asking ourselves. Does going to the IMF help with the ball of Kenke? Those are basic questions that we need to be asking ourselves. Because how would it help reduce inflation? Would the price of Kenke ever come down because we go to IMF? Anyway, James Tete is joining us from Sunyani. In the run-up to the 2020 election, the then opposition candidate, former President Mahama, said when we win power, all those arrested for engaging in galamsey will be given amnesty for them to come back and give them another chance to do their work as galamseys. Oh, okay. There's Alassane Hamdan who is joining us. The only mistake Ghanaians made was voting for the MPP. 2024 is the right forum for Ghanaians to send that family and friends away. The MPP never admit their inefficiencies. Before one can solve a problem, you need to first admit that there is a problem. But Anado and family members will never take any responsibility. They are always right. There's Suleiman Abdurrahim. Why is the Electoral Commission insisting to use the Ghana card for 2024 election? At all costs, when the challenges surrounding the card are massive, there's something fishy about the whole matter. And Nick Enim says, Elvis, you've impressed me with your submission. You'll go far if you continue on this path. Well, just two more messages and I'll come to Alhaji. There's this one is from Papa BCU in Accra, who says, hi, Sena. It is unfortunate that this group of people ruling us today told lies to Ghanaians to get their mandate in 2016 election. And I'll see the mess they have run the country into. The previous government headed by His Excellency John Mahama really put adequate policies and measures in place like the sinking funds and others. But this group of people messed up everything for their own private pockets to the detriment of majority of suffering Ghanaians, simply because they are greedy and very clueless. They lacked ideas in governing a country. That's Papa Bisiudis Wolanyo in Akwitia. Let us keep hope alive. We'll get out of financial constraint we are going through as a nation. So far, things have started becoming stable, especially our cedi to dollar, and the rest will follow soon. Just a matter of patience and time. And, okay, thank you. There's also, this one says, a good morning. Granted that the issue of Russia and Ukraine is our government's headache, because all countries are affected, and COVID affected the whole world. I have a simple question for Ghana's leaders. Why are all other countries performing under these circumstances better than Ghana? There is Amate of Sege, who says the desire of the finance minister, Ken Oforiatta, is to be going in for loans because his bank, Data Bank, through which the loans come to Ghana, always gets a huge percentage cut, which is more than enough to fix the Sege Bato Road. This is clearly a conflict of interest which the president must sack him for. But he will not, because they are cousins. Only under President Anado can this take place. Okay, I think there's one other one I just wanted to go through quickly, but I can't find it. Alhaji, good morning.
Sena, good morning.
Nice to see you.
Yes, quite some time.
Yes, it's been quite a while.
Yes. Good morning, Honorable Sissala. Sissala West?
Yes.
Good morning. My brother Elvis. How are you? Dede? Boateng? Well, I think that most of the panelists have done a good job at dissecting the problems confronting us. and confronting this country. And many have said, and I share in what they have said, that look, have you done an impact analysis of the Russian-Ukraine war on our countries and come to the conclusion that what is confronting us, what is confronting our economy, what is sinking our economy is actually the Russian-Ukraine war? Or is it that somebody's own idiosyncratic reasoning is what is making us believe that is the Russian-Ukraine war? Indeed, I would recommend, Elvis, that we make the Finch report that downgrades the country's economy from CCC to CC available to all communicators. You will see from that report that there's no reference whatsoever to the Russian-Ukraine war. It means that the Russian-Ukraine war had absolutely no impact on the downgrading of the country's economy from CC to CCC. I mean, from CCC to CC. Now, also significant is the assertion by Finch that, look, in downgrading, well, when you come to C, you have come to the bottom. It's just like junk. We no longer give an outlook. We don't say you have a positive outlook or a negative outlook. You're just junk. You understand? So what I tell you is that we have now, like my brother Honorable Sissala West put it, you were junk, and so we're still entertaining you. Okay, we still have some hope. Now we are in the dustbin. That's the thing, that you are in the dustbin. What is left for another downgrade to send us to the baller? That's all. That's what they're saying. So it's not, I mean, they don't even see in Outlook, do they? They don't see. In fact, when you read the report, you yourself will be convinced that we are headed in the wrong direction. Ghana's external debt at we stand. And we didn't start talking about it today, do we? No. So no, we didn't. When the borrowing started, and we started compiling the debts that we were amassing, at a point we raised the alarm. We said that, and that was even before COVID. We said that, look, at the rate at which we were borrowing, interest rate payments will catch up with us. How do you borrow yourself out of poverty? How can you do that? I mean, if Ronaldo had a company and he wanted to set up a company, we are told that you don't borrow to start a company, do we? Because you will, before you even, your company starts running, you start paying interest. Without even breaking even. So you're going to sink further. So I just ask, a person asks. So Nanado and the finance minister, if Ghana were Ghana Incorporated, and the managers were, directors were Nanado and what's his name? Finance Minister, Kenneth Orata, would they have borrowed this way? Would they have borrowed this way? Would they have borrowed up to the extent that the external bond market is saying that, well, we can't relate you? You are so damaged that we can, the market is close to you. That's the point. You are a country, a sovereign country. And lenders are saying that no, the opportunity to borrow is no longer available to you. Doesn't this speak volumes? It says that, look, in 2023 alone, interest payments and amortization will be $3 billion. That's what Finch is saying. And where are we going to get it? When we got even 750 million, we threw a Konke party and celebrated it. Yes. So where are we going to get it? So there's a higher risk of what? Default. That's what they're saying. So we need to see how the country will restructure its debts, because we can't pay. And it is even more drastic in the country. That because the Euro bonds and the loans that we contract from outside, their value is stored. They're in foreign currency. So their value is stored. You took $1 billion, you are paying us $1 billion, where your cedis 10 cedis per dollar or 12 cedis per dollar or 9, you are paying us $1 million plus interest in dollars. So the value is stored, it's maintained. The problem is the local banks, where they have borrowed to government at a prevailing rate. Inflation has caught up with them. Inflation now stands officially at 34%. Then your CD has weakened by 40%. The combined effect of that is that the money you borrowed to, you lent to the government has been swept away by the combined effect of inflation and depreciation. You get it? Let me demonstrate it. By the CD weakening by 40%, means if you had 100,000 in your account at the beginning of April, and you didn't use the 100,000, the value of the 100,000 which is still sitting in your account is now 60,000. It's now 60,000. So without doing anything, the inflation, which has now become a wind, and depreciation is blowing away your money. So we're in dire straits. We're in very dire straits. I feel it because I'm a private citizen. I feel it. At the beginning of the year, we went and bought diesel per drum at 1,200. Just at the close of July, we're buying it at 3,600. Does anybody need to tell you that something very funny is happening in this country? When last year, farmers were complaining that they had no fertilizer, and the fertilizer was selling 100 cedis, open market. 100 cedis, open market. Today, it's 400.
Where are they selling it for? It's 400. It's 400. I need to know where they make it. So that will fit by some. Because I know it's 460.
So you see,
shortages in the market.
Look at
people now, you know.
Yes, you get it. So you don't need to look into the crystal ball and say that Ghana is in dire straits.
Like it's even cheaper in Burkina Faso than Ghana.
Oh, wait. I went to my farm area from BC. And someone actually told me. So one night when you were speaking, I was looking at you. Someone actually told me that he was going to Burkina Faso to buy the diesel for the tractor. I said, I refuse. I said, I don't use the Burkina Faso diesel in my tractor. But it struck me as curious. One of the reasons why Kufuor supported liberalization of the petroleum products was that our petroleum products were being smuggled to Burkina Faso. Today, it's the other way around. That should tell you something. You see? And we didn't just wake up to arrive at this point. The reckless expenditure. Not backed. I mean, I gave Nepo a book. I don't know whether he still has it. Efficiency in Public Service. I don't know whether he still have it. If that money you used to do one village, one dam, were sitting in your account and you were a businessman and you wanted to construct dams, that dams that you constructed, would they have cost that much? Or would they have been engineered that way? That's how you test efficiency. One day we give you the reins of government. We're not giving you a license to dissipate our resources. And so when you promise the people that you are going to keep the purse, watch the public purse, protect the public purse, nobody expects you to lose the public purse. in protectorate, don't lose it. But we have lost it. Nana Akufo-Addo had lost it. We don't know where it is now. And that is the problem we are confronted with. We simply are between the devil and the deep blue sea. There was no option open to them than to go to the IMF. There was no option. Just recently, I was listening to BBC, and some of the loans had matured, and they were supposed to pay about 1 billion out. Normally, the foreign investors roll over the loans, but this time, the report was saying that there was the likelihood that they would withdraw their money. So we are in for worse days. It's not ended yet. And tell whoever is in who sent the texter who said that things are getting better. How can things get better now? We want them to get better, to be honest with you. We want them to get better. But in getting better, the city must not go to 11 cities. If your city is 10 cities and gets to 11 cities, the thing is not getting better. It's not getting better. Now, you know why we have come here, where we have come to. Why? When leadership, when there's a failure of leadership, everything that happens is the effect of that failure. If you say you want to protect public purse, and some people in your government are making money out of government transactions while still serving government, what do you do if you are an effective leader? You ask them to elect. You put them to an election. You either serve government because you told us that anybody who was coming into your government to make money must do what? Must stay off. Nobody put those words in Nana Akufo-Addo's mouth. You said that. And then when evidence appears that some people are your government and are making money by the use by government contracts, you put them to an election. That's what leaders do. That's what they do to restore confidence in the political system. That's what they do to restore their reputations and integrity as leaders. That's why Lee Kuan Yew is celebrated. When you hear evidence of corruption, you don't clear your people because you have all the machinery of what? Governance available to you. All machinery. You can even invoke cooperation of the your international partners to investigate. And when you do, and you have the facts, you confront your appointee with the facts. And what were we seeing? Turns himself into a clearing agent. Even when the PPA boss was not cleared, the president openly in parliament said, oh, international credible bodies, national bodies had cleared, including parliament, had cleared. That's where we are. So it gave those people who are doing the corrupt acts, it emboldened them. They knew that they have a president who will do absolutely nothing about corruption. That's where we are. So when political appointees now dance in the open with corruption, bureaucrats, for them they have a field day. Because for them they were not already accountable to, they are just accountable to the political authorities. So if you're the master, if a village chief takes a cat, punk, what do you expect young men to do? What do you expect young men to do? So the political head had taken a cat. The young men will do hairdos and hairstyles. you will never understand. That's what has gotten us to where we are. And when John Mahama speaks, they descend on him. In a little while, I will read what he said and tell me which of them is not true. Just when he said that, and the World Bank people came and said, oh, no, it's well called Russian-Ukraine war. 2 days ago, who was on the Pierre Leponte was on TV3, your sister network. He tried to somehow dress up. And because diplomacy requires that you don't interfere into the internal affairs. I agree with what the IMF is doing, this restructuring, negotiations and whatnot, is to ensure that because Ghana is the highest debtor to the IMF in Africa, we have gotten about 1.2 something billion special drawing rights from the IMF. It translated to 1.6 something million United States dollars. We are followed by Sudan and Democratic Republic of Congo. So, if
wait, their situation is exacerbated by conflict. So invariably Ghana is the worst.
Physical conflict.
Yes.
Our situation is exacerbated by conflict of interest.
Exactly. so invariably Ghana is last.
Because you say you are doing one village, one dam. You know that government knows. I mean, I don't know where these people want to learn governance. I don't know. You say you are doing one village, one dam. I mean, one village, one factory. What is it? One district, one factory. And you say that I was in parliament then. All companies that will set up under the one district, one factory will have tax waiver. And by doing that, you gave millions of dollars to already established factories who didn't need your policy to establish in the first place, and so many to factories which will contribute little to our development because we are not in need of those factories. Clear example, the hotel to be built by Nana Akufo-Addo's in-laws. Tell me what it will add. And we gave them millions of dollars. Now, you are a manager of the economy. Again, put it in your company. Your company is struggling to survive. Your company has got some money coming in. And you can reinvest the money, or you can use that money to pay your workers. You decide that, you are not going to reinvest your money. You are not going to pay your workers the money. You are going to give your money up. Meanwhile, your company is suffering. Is that a prudent decision? You don't have physical space. You can't raise enough tax revenue. This government, one of the problems confronting us in this country is that we are incapable of raising enough tax revenue. Then the little tax we want to raise to, you say you have given it up, giving it away, because you are promoting a policy. And then your mama says, these are bad and imprudent policies. You say why? You say why? I don't know about policies. Yeah. Look, you said that because you don't have tax revenue, and somebody tweeted that even in the face of all this, they are still paying workers. If you borrow to pay workers, is it also some ingenuity? You borrow to pay workers. Are you a genius? You can't. I mean, you are supposed to pay workers from the outcome of their labor. That's how you're supposed to pay workers. They produce, and you pay them. Americans don't pay them salary. They pay them wages. So your wage is directly related to your productivity. That's how. So if you don't produce, you don't get paid. So if you go and borrow money to pay workers, and you say, in the face of these difficulties, we are paying workers. Who are you toying with? Have you reduced Ghanaians to a bunch of jokers? But we have said it. We have said it. And I said that civil society organizations, where have they been hiding? Because you see, we knew that we would get to where we have gotten to. It's not without even COVID. I was in Parliament when the minister came with the COVID intervention funds and whatnot things for us to pass. When the minister came with the 2019 budget, he said that, and I quote, COVID-19 has exposed the underlying vulnerabilities of the economy. So they were already what? Underlying vulnerabilities of our economy. Our economy was not robust as we were being told. What they have done, you see, if you are not wearing a white shirt and you are in the village and your shirt looks white and you are perambulating, gallivanting around the village thinking that you are wearing a white shirt, you only realize that your shirt is not white when you move into town and see people wearing white shirts. Then take a look at your shirt. It might be a brown shirt or a brownish shirt. So what COVID did to us was to expose the underlying vulnerabilities. That thing, when it came, opened us up for further attack. So we're covering it up. We're managing it. We're managing it. But we could no longer manage it. The minister said it. I'm not putting those words in his mouth. I'm not putting those words in. You see, but if this had not happened, we will not know, probably as we speak. I say that Ghanaians, we should find a way to assess our leaders very critically and not allow demagogues, with the greatest respect, to take control of this country. If this had not happened, nobody would have been able to convince anybody in Ghana that Nana Akufo-Addo would not be a good leader. When Kofi Kumsin said it, he was lambasted. Not so. He said he couldn't sleep at night. When Nyahuta Mokolo said it, he was abused and attacked. So the fact that, you see, the only thing is that the fact that has happened and happened now is our worry. Because we are all in it. We didn't wish that it would happen. But it has happened, so we have to talk about it. But we are forewarned that when we said that, well, you can't introduce free senior high school policy without a funding regime. And we made so much noise about it. We spoke so much about it that it compelled the president to respond to us. You know his response. He said he was going to use the oil revenue. And that was his choice. That was his choice. He had chosen to use the oil revenue to fund free senior high school. The president said it. I didn't say it. Then I responded. Because choices have what? Consequences. So the consequence of that choice is the road to IMF. That's the consequence. When the Minister of Roads and Highways decided with impunity, when Parliament had not even approved the budget, to abolish road tolls. Even the Bretton Woods institutions, they are somehow very malleable to us. They should have insulted us in our face. They are looking for money. The e-levy has not been passed. You have brought a policy. That policy has not been approved. Then you decide that, oh, this morning I won't collect again. As if the country is yours. You have never heard about it. And they said they call this governance. And they call this kind of arrangement governance. Patapa or Pilolo government. Because Because you never understand. I'm telling you, you will sit down to look at all their policies one by one. We're struggling as a country, and the president regards in private jets. Private jets. Then you say that we should tighten. Japan has Japan has responded to him. You know, you see people should tighten their belt. You must lead the process. Also, you can't tighten your belt. You can't ask me to tighten my belt when I see your stomach growing big. You can't tell me that. No, you can't tell me that. So you see, the IMF, in conclusion, I'm coming to an end. Because if I mean to talk about this, I will have hypertension. Because as a private person, I'm telling you, I've had it.